Hi there, and welcome to today's webinar, Google Slides, More Than Just Presentation Software. This session is the first of a series of live webinars that I plan to host, offered each month, focusing on GSuite tools and creative ways to use them. I want to welcome everyone who have joined us live today or who might be watching the recording in the future. My name is Danielle Rochford. I'm a level 2 Google certified educator, and I'm going to be your presenter today. I will be assisted by my wonderful live stream technician, Aiden, who will be monitoring for questions and comments, and we'll discuss how we're going to do that in just a moment. Now, all the information for today's webinar can be found directly on the webinar page, and it's posted just below this video. I've provided a Google Slides cheat sheet for those needing some refresher information on Google Slides basics. You'll also find template files that you can copy into your own Google Drive to get you started using Google Slides in some of the creative ways that we will be discussing today. If you scroll down even a little further on that page, you will find a section for asking questions. I want you to feel free to submit any questions that you might have, and during the last portion of the webinar, I will try to answer as many as I can, as much as time permits. Now, finally, at the end of this webinar, there will be an opportunity to receive a certificate of attendance that documents 1 hour of training time. So if your school or organization allows you to hand in documentation for online training, you can go ahead and click on the Get Certificate button that will appear towards the end of the session. In order to access the certificate, you will be asked to do a few things though. Number one is to watch through the training all the way to the end. You will also be asked to provide some feedback on this session, which actually really does help me to be able to improve these online trainings that I plan to do. And then finally, you'll be asked to answer a few simple questions about what you learned today. And I really do encourage you to take advantage of that. All right, now that we have those housekeeping details out of the way, let's take a look at the agenda for today's session. We're going to start off by identifying exactly what interactive slideshows are. We're then going to take a look at refreshing some of the Google Slides basic skills that we will use through this session. And once we all have a good understanding of those skills, we'll take a look at some specific examples, 3 in fact. We will explore using Google Slides to create choose your own adventure stories, interactive posters, and interactive games, all of which I provide templates for you to use if you choose. I will also spend some time sharing how you and your students can create these same types of activities from scratch. In regards to the prerequisite skills and tools that you will need to be successful in this webinar, first and foremost, you will need to have access to a GSuite account. So if you have a personal Gmail account or your school provides you with GSuite tools like Gmail and Drive, then you will have everything that is necessary. You will then need access to Google Slides and be able to create a new slides file. If you're not quite sure how to do that, I will be sharing a couple of ways you can create it. Then finally, it would be helpful if you had a basic understanding of how to use Google Slides. This session isn't really going to be a Google Slides 101. I will review some basics, but if you haven't used Google Slides or PowerPoint ever before, you might want to check out my Google Slides cheat sheet in the session resources just below this video. All right, let's hop right into things. Cue the intro, maestro. So, what exactly is an interactive slideshow? Well, I think it might be easier to start off with what it is not. Usually slideshows are designed to show slides in a sequential order. So very much like the slides that I've been showing here today so far. I have a slide deck of images and information that I'm using to help illustrate the things I'm speaking about. So I start at the beginning with slide number 1 and continue to click through to slide number 2, then slide number 3, and on and on and on until the end. Now, this is probably the most common way that slides are used. This type of format is what we would call a linear slideshow. It's ideal for things that need to be presented in a particular order. So for example, this webinar or a teacher's lecture, or maybe even like a book report or something like that that a student might put together. However, we don't always have to do that. We can go beyond the linear slideshow that so many of us are comfortable with. Instead, we can use a non-linear or non-sequential slideshow. So what you can do is create all of your content as you normally would, but then you use hyperlinks. Now these hyperlinks allow you to take images or text in one slide and link it to another slide. I can start on slide 1, but based on what I click on, I might move to slide 2 or slide 3 or any other slide in the deck that doesn't have to go in order. I can follow whatever path makes sense to me. So this is what we're going to be looking at today, these non-linear or interactive slideshows. And they do serve a lot of neat purposes. For example, you could create an online activity that allows someone to quiz their knowledge of a particular subject area. You could have a question with several possible answers where each option is a hyperlink. So clicking on an answer will take you to a different slide depending on if you got the right answer or not. A wrong answer would take you to a slide that prompts you to try again and gives an option for going back to the question page, where a correct answer would congratulate you for choosing the correct response and prompt you to move on to the next question. Another great use for an interactive slideshow would be creating online games like Jeopardy or Bazinga. Here, you would design the playing board and then use hyperlinks to navigate various questions or actions for the game. This is one of the examples that I'm going to be demonstrating shortly. For those of you who teach writing or simply enjoy writing, you can use an interactive slideshow to create or collaborate on a choose your own adventure story. I remember these stories from when I was a kid. I would make weekly trips to the library to check out a new one. And I loved being able to read the story and have a different outcome each time. As a classroom teacher, I've also had my students work collaboratively to create their own choose your own adventure stories. Yet another example would be to take the idea of traditional poster to the next level. Why just have a static image for a poster or even an anchor chart in a classroom when you can create an interactive one? The possibilities are only limited by your own imagination. All right, so now that we have a more clear understanding of what these interactive slideshows are, let's dive into exploring and creating some with Google Slides. Now I'm going to start sharing my screen here so that you can see exactly what I'm doing as I do it. Why don't we start by reviewing a few Google Slides basics just to make sure that we're all on the same page and understanding some of these basic skills that we're going to be using. The first thing that we're going to review is how to create a new Google Slide document. Now there are a couple of different ways that you can do this. I'm going to show you two. The first one would be to create a new Google Slide file directly from your Google Drive. Now, in order to do that, you need to click on the New button in the upper left-hand corner of your screen, just below the Drive icon. Once you click on that, you will notice that a number of different options come up in the drop-down menu, one of them being Google Slides. If you click on the Google Slides option, that will create a new file for you. A second really neat way that you can create a brand new Google Slide file is by typing slides.new into the address bar of Google Chrome. And what that will do is create a brand new Google Slides file for you that you can work on. The only drawback to that is that you don't get to choose where it is stored in your Google Drive right off the bat. That's one of the reasons why I like to create them directly in my Google Drive, because then I can decide exactly where it is that I'm going to store it. However, after you have created it, you certainly can move it around if you want to organize your files. Naming your document is another really good practice to get into the habit of doing on a regular basis. And it's actually really easy to do. At the top of the file in the upper left-hand corner where it says Untitled Presentation, if you click on that, it allows you to then type whatever you would like to name your file. So you type the name that you would like for it to be, and then press enter, and you have renamed the file to what it is that you would like it to be. If choosing different colors and shapes and designs and font combinations and things like that is not your strongest point, then there are a number of different themes that you can choose from that are pre-made for you. It is in that themes window that pops up to the right-hand side of the Google Slides document. But if you choose not to use any of those themes, you can press the X in the upper right-hand corner there to minimize that screen so it gives you more room for your workspace. I think one thing that gets quite often overlooked with Google Slides is that you can actually change the dimensions of the document that you're working on. I think most often we end up logging into a Google Slide file and it's, okay, it's the widescreen file. That's what a presentation is supposed to look like. And so we just get going. But one of the things that really adds to the versatility of Google Slides is that you can change those dimensions. So for example, if I wanted to use it as a page design program rather than a presentation tool, I can totally do that. Now, in order to change the dimensions of the file that you're working on, all that you need to do is go to File and then choose Page Setup. Now, it will automatically be set to the widescreen 16:9 file size, but if you click on where it says widescreen there, you will get a drop-down menu of a number of different sizes that you can choose from. And the one that makes it the most versatile here is the custom option. When you click on custom, it gives you the option to change the dimensions of the file. And you can even choose the measurement that it's shown in. So inches is the most common one, but you do have the option for centimeters, points, as well as pixels. So for our example here today, I'm going to change things up to an 8.5 by 11 inches size, and we'll take a look and see what that looks like. All right, so now that we have the sizing the way that we want it, why don't we take a look at some design elements, things that we can add to it. One particular thing that we can do is we can actually change the background of our presentation file here. So the slide does not have to be always a white background. You can change it to a different color, or you can change it to be a background image. We can do this by right-clicking on the slide itself and then choosing the option Change Background. Now, this will give us a couple of different options where we can choose to change the background image. If we click on that, it brings up a space where we can upload something from our albums on Google Drive. We can take a snapshot, we can add with a URL, or you can upload it directly from your computer. Now, the other option is changing the background color, and that's the very top option there. If you click on that, it gives you a number of different shades of various colors that you can add and you can use, or you could even choose a custom color down at the bottom. That is an option as well. So once you have made the choice of how you are going to change up your background, all you need to do then is click the Done button. Now, you could click on the Add Theme, and moving forward, that will make sure that your slides have that same background. But if you only want the one slide to have that particular background, then all you do is click on Done. Keep in mind that nothing is absolutely irreversible in Google Slides, or for most programs for that matter. That is where our handy dandy undo button comes into play. All right, now let's take a look at adding a few items to this Google Slide file here. We're going to go to the Insert menu item and choose Image. Now, there's a couple of ways that we can upload different images. We can upload directly from the computer, or we can search the web. And this is actually a really neat way of doing things. If you click on it, there will open up to the right-hand side a search function, very similar to if you were doing a Google search. And all you need to do is type in a word or phrase of an item that you're looking for, and it will search for various image files that you can use in your presentation. Once you have selected the one that you would like to see, then all you need to do is click the option to insert it into the program. All right, finally, let's get some sample text written into our title bar here. And then we're going to take a look at how we can include hyperlinks into our documents. Now, hyperlinks are links that we can provide to different slides in the presentation or even to outside websites. We start off by highlighting the text that we would like to make a hyperlink. Then we go to Insert and choose Link. This will give us the option for inserting a link to an outside source or choosing another slide in the presentation. Once you have placed in where you would like the hyperlink to go, you press Apply. Now, text is not the only thing that we can apply a hyperlink to. We can actually apply it to images and shapes as well. So if we take a look at the image that we have on this page, we highlight it, we then go to Insert, and once again to Link, and then we can identify where we would like the hyperlink to be directed to. Hit Apply, and now our image has been hyperlinked as well. All right, so now that we have those skills under our belt, let's try and apply them in real practical ways. I want to start off with choose your own adventure stories. You know, often we don't think of Google Slides when it comes to writing, but I found that this year in particular with my students, I've been using it quite a bit. And one of the projects that I've done with my students in the past has been creating their own choose your own adventure stories. And to be honest, in past years, I've used Google Docs, and it can be a bit of a logistical nightmare. And so when we use Google Slides for creating these choose your own adventures, it actually really helps to organize things quite a bit. Plus we have that whole collaborative nature of Google Slides, which really helps things. So let's take a look at what we can do with Google Slides to help create these choose your own adventure stories. On the screen, you can see all of the different files that were generated by one of my previous class projects where we wrote a choose your own adventure story. Now, that looks much, much different when I use Google Slides for that same project. Instead, I only have one file that I'm working on. Starting off with a template is always really nice because a lot of the pre-formatting is done for you already and you don't need to worry about it. For those of you that would like a template to use for a Choose Your Own Adventure project, this is one of the files that I have provided a link to just below the video here. So you can download that template if you would like to use it for your own purposes. If by chance, though, you are starting from scratch, one of the very first things that I do is I adjust the size of the slide. I use a 6x9" slide. This is the size of most average paperback books, and so that's why I've chosen that size to use. And then what I do is I provide a title slide for the students to be able to customize. That way they're able to choose a background picture, which can be added. If you remember back to a little bit earlier, the right-clicking and choosing change background, students are able to add their own picture for what their book cover will look like, and then placing in the title of their story and who it's done by. So students are able to customize it themselves. When I assign this project to my students, we actually do this as a group task. So we will start it off as a whole class activity where we decide on the main idea of what the story is going to be about. And then as a class, we will write the first page together. And so we come up with ideas, we brainstorm, and we come up with that first section together, including the first two choices, so choice 1 and choice 2. Then from there, I will divide the class up into 2 groups. So one group will focus on what happens if someone chooses choice 1, and then the second group will focus on what happens in the story if someone chooses choice 2. And then I keep further subdividing the groups that way. So the groups get progressively smaller and smaller until I have one student working on a final choice before we end the story. Before we begin the project, I'll go through the file and make sure that I have the proper number of slides that are needed, that all the links are connected the way that they need to be. So for example, choice 1, choice 2, they are connected to the proper slide that it needs to go to, and that I have already put in text boxes that are pre-populated with the font that I would like them to use, as well as the font size that I would like them to use. That way there's no sort of arguing over, well, I'm going to use this fancy font or whatnot. I've already pre-populated that for the students, and so that is not a negotiable item, so that we see a general flow throughout the whole document. Organization does tend to be one of the trickiest portions to creating the Choose Your Own Adventure stories. And so one thing that I have done is I have put together a roadmap for myself so that I know what slides I have, I know which slides that they should be linking to, and so I can see the general flow of where each choice is taking us. And that also helps me to be able to assign to the students and the groups what slide number they are working at that current time in the project. Now, this roadmap is also a resource that I'm providing for everyone today. So if you want to see how I map things out, you can take a look at the link that I've provided for download, and feel free to use that resource for yourself as well. With a lot of the projects that I have my own students do, I like to make it so that I am not their only audience, that they have a much larger audience than just me. And so Google Slides has this feature that is actually really neat and allows us to share projects like this with other people, and it's called Publish to the Web. And so how we find that is by going to File and then choosing Publish to the Web. There we get a number of different options for publishing. You can choose how often the slides progress automatically, if they do, and so you go through all those different settings, choosing what it is that you would like and how you would like the final product to look, and then when you are ready, you press Publish. And once you press that Publish button, you receive a link. Okay, and unless of course you've chosen the embed option, and that is if you want to embed it in another, like a website. But for today I'm going to be demonstrating the link. And so once you publish to the web, you are given a link. And then if we take a look at what that looks like, we open up a new tab, put the link in, and you'll notice that we have our Choose Your Own Adventure story right here. And we have our navigation tools down at the bottom that we can use. But as we move to the different pages, you notice we also have the different choices, and those are of course hyperlinked. And so if we click on those, it takes us directly to the option that we're choosing. And so we can share this link beyond just the teacher seeing it or other students seeing it. We can share it with parents and family, and they can see the final product that the students have created as well, and experience their Choose Your Own Adventure book as well. What students don't love games, right? I know my students absolutely love games, particularly things like Kahoot or Jeopardy or Bazinga. This is a game that I play quite often with many of my classes. I know my high school students used to love Bazinga whenever we would do review games. Now, this is an online game that you can create using Google Slides really, really easily. So it's as simple as creating a title slide, a slide that includes the rules for the game, and then, of course, we would need our game board. Our game board would include hyperlinks that link to other slides in the presentation. For Bazinga, it would be different consequences. But if, for example, if you were putting together like a Jeopardy game board, then you would have your Jeopardy board, and each hyperlink would go to a slide with a question, and then you would have the connections made that way. For Bazinga, in this review game, the way that it works is that you have different teams, and teams are answering review questions, and they have a certain amount of time to be able to lock in their answers, and if they get it correct, they receive points. But then they also get the chance to choose from the Bazinga board, and the Bazinga board has these different imaginary cards, because it's a digital game, and each card has some type of consequence. It could be positive, it could be negative, and it could just be something that ends up throwing the game at a whack. So that's basically what Bazinga is all about. And so after a correct answer, the students would come to the Bazinga board, and they would decide, well, which card are we going to choose? And so I have that identified by the letter A, B, and C. So there's 3 cards in each Bazinga envelope. And so after a correct answer, they come, they answer, and then we click on it and see where it takes them. And so just to show you what that looks like, I'll put this in presentation mode here. We don't need our speaker notes. But this would be the board that the students would see. They get a correct answer and then they make a choice. Okay, we're going to go this one right here. And here we have our consequence. So the consequence is erase 1 point from the other team. And so that's what ends up happening. And then we move on to the next review question. And then, of course, we have our navigation here going back to the Bazinga board. Okay, so that is essentially what an online game created in Google Slides would look like. And once again, we are using those hyperlinks. Okay, and we're using those navigation tools and using all of the, making sure that we have, going back to the board and all that kind of stuff. So this is very, very similar to the Choose Your Own Adventure book that we were talking about, where we had those navigation tools that allowed us to be able to skip to different slides based on the choices that we were making. And so that's how these online games are organized. Sometimes, well, and particularly with this one, Jeopardy is another one, it can take a lot of time to put together the online game because you need to sort of be able to think through, okay, so if this is the option that they're making, what slide is it being linked to, and so on and so forth. And so these online games do take a little bit of time to put together. But it is one where, if you get a template to use, you can customize it quite easily for yourself. So this is another file that I am providing for everyone. So you do have access to a link to download it just below the video here. And so you can download that and use it if you would like to in your classes. I have provided the rules of play, so if you're not familiar with the game, it does have the rules that go along with it there. And this can be customized to how you would like to use it. So these connections have already been made to the different slides. So that part, the hard part of the job is already done there. But what you're able to do is if you want to customize it with different consequences or rewards and things like that, then all you need to do is go to these slides that have the different consequences or rewards, and you can customize it. These are text boxes that you can change up. So you just put your cursor in there and you type it, and you can can highlight, you can erase, you can do whatever you would like, and then type in your own consequences or your own ideas that you would like to put in there. So it can be easily customized that way. So that's Bazinga, and this same format would be something that you would use for a game like Jeopardy, which does tend to be a little bit more popular too. With the Jeopardy board, if you were to create one of those, you would probably want to change the slide size, because the Jeopardy board is probably a little bit more like a square than a rectangle, and so you'd want to make those changes. You could change up the background to the blue Jeopardy color and whatnot. And then you can add in your own art and like clip art or pictures and whatnot that you would want to include, which you can see that I've included here on the Bazinga board. These are all items that I've added to it to sort of decorate it to make it look like a very inviting game type of thing. Okay. So that is that's an online game, and how we can use hyperlinks to be able to do that. And of course, it would be in presentation mode that you would share it with the students to be able to link between the different hyperlinks that we have there. The final activity that we're going to take a look at today is creating interactive posters. Now, interactive posters are really, really neat because it parts from that whole static poster and makes it one where you're still designing and using those types of talents, but the person who's going to be interacting with the poster has a lot more interaction involved rather than just looking at it. So let me start by sharing with you what our final product is going to look like. So here we have our poster all about dinosaurs, and you'll notice that down at the bottom there are instructions that tell us to click on an image to find out more. And if we go ahead and click on one of the dinosaurs, we notice that we're taken to a page that has some interesting facts, a video, as well as a picture of the dinosaur that we're looking at, and some navigation tabs. We can go back home, take a look at another dinosaur, and more information about that. And notice there's also a button to direct us towards a quiz. And here we see that we have a cool dinosaur quiz that we can take based on what we've learned about in the information that we've investigated through going through the interactive poster. This school year, I presented the idea to my Science 7 class as we were going through and studying animals and their habitats. And the creativity that these students had when it came to the final product and what they were able to come up with was amazing. If you set students loose with a tool like this and an idea like this, they have great imaginations and they can go great places with it. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is start off with a brand new Google Slide file. And you can refer back to how we discussed to do that. There were two different ways that we talked about earlier during this session to do that. Either one works. Once we have our new file, we are going to name it. So we're going to name our file today Interactive Poster. Once we have that done, we're going to start designing the actual poster part of things. So we're going to come up with the creative ideas here before we put together the links and the information portions of the slides. So we are going to change our background, and we're going to upload an image as the background. So we're going to choose an image, and then we're going to upload a file, an image file from our desktop on the computer. Hopefully your files are better organized than mine, and you can find it quicker than I am right now. All right, and once we locate that file, we get it all loaded up. Now we have that as our background, and we can click Done and move along with bringing in some of the other design elements. All right, now let's tackle our title. So we're going to type in our title, Dinosaurs, and that color font is a little difficult to see. So why don't we change that to white and maybe increase the font size just a little bit here to make it a little bit more visible. And then I'm going to adjust the text box size there and move it up towards the top because we don't want the whole picture being covered by our title. Now let's take a look at, we have a section here for the subtitle, and so we can use that for the instruction portion of it. And so we will type in here letting them know that they can click on an image to find out more. We also want to make that a lighter color so it's more visible. And there we go. All right, so now it's time to start inserting some of those images of the individual dinosaurs. Now, I've already done some searching for images, and I've chosen some that have a transparent background so that it'll make it really nice on the picture where it looks like those dinosaurs are actually just part of the picture. So there we've inserted one, but it's a little bit too big for our environment there, so we can resize it and maybe reposition it a little bit to have it fit in here well. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Let's take a look at some of the other ones that we've got here. So we'll take a look at our second dinosaur file, get that loaded up here. Once again, another one with a transparent background, and we'll move him around into the environment, see where he fits well. I think that looks good. Okay. Maybe we'll move him over just a little bit more. There we go. And then we have one more that we're going to insert here. So let's find that dinosaur file. Once again, another image with a transparent background so that we don't have any block looking type of images that sort of look out of place. And so we'll locate that in our files. There he is. We'll bring him in. Whoa, he's pretty big there. So we definitely need to resize him. There we go. Let's make him a little bit smaller. Maybe move him into more of the center of the image there. Perfect. That looks great. So now, before we can make our poster interactive and include those hyperlinks, we need to create a few more slides. So let's go ahead and create some slides here. So we'll get one going here. And as the title, we'll put in Dinosaur 1. And then we'll put a little bit of information, placeholder information here. So we'll have interesting fact number 1, interesting fact number 2, and interesting fact number 3. So that's our placeholder information that we will use. So now we can come back to our poster and we can use that, we can do a copy and paste so that we're using the same image of the dinosaur. We'll place him in there so that we have that same dinosaur. We know which one we're talking about. Let's make it a little bit bigger so that we can sort of not have a totally empty page there. So there we go. Very good. And now I think we're also going to add an additional piece of information on this page. We're going to add a YouTube video. So we'll open up a new tab and bring up YouTube, and let's search for dinosaur video. See if we can find anything interesting here. So we scroll through and find, oh, here's the one that I'm looking for. All right. So there we have the video that we're looking for. We'll go to the share options and copy the link. And then we go back to our Google slide presentation, go to insert, choose video, and then we're going to do it by URL. And that's where we will paste the address. There's the video, insert it, and then it will pop up onto our screen. We'll just reposition it and resize it so that it fits well into our slide there. All right, so now we're going to go back to our main poster page and we're going to link the image of the dinosaur with the page that we've just created. So we go to insert, link, and now we're going to choose the slide from the presentation that corresponds with this dinosaur. So we find it there in our list, and then we hit apply. So now in presentation mode, if someone were to click on that dinosaur, they would be brought to his information page with the important information, the interesting points, the YouTube video, as well as his picture. There we have it. We can do a quick test of the video just to make sure that it works. And it seems to. Fantastic. And now we would repeat this exact same process over and over again for all the different elements that we have on our main poster page that we want to make clickable or that we want to have a hyperlink to, whether it be to various slides in our presentation, or in the case of like the quiz that I had up there at the very beginning where we saw that, you can link to an outside website as well. And it's the whole same process as what we just completed here for this dinosaur. All right, so one final thing that we're going to do is we are going to search for some icons that we can use as navigation items on the individual slides for those dinosaurs. So let's do a search, and we are going to search for, let's see, a home icon. And so let's see what we can come up with. We'll take a look here, see what we can find, see what looks good. This one looks like it'll probably work. Okay, let's select that one and insert it. It's a little large, so we need to resize it. We want that much smaller. Okay, and then let's do just a little bit more. And then we're going to bring it up to the corner here. So it's one of our navigation items up there. There we go. Good. That's looking good. All right, so now we need to insert a link. And we are going to link it to the poster page and apply. There we go. So that when we are in present mode and that gets clicked, we go back to the main poster page. And there we have it in a nutshell. A great strategy for engaging students in their projects, a slightly different perspective on the traditional poster. Now, it is time for questions. I know that we have a few questions in the queue here, and I think we have time to take a couple of them. So let's take a look at our very first question here. If I publish a Google slide to the web, can anyone see it? Quick answer for that one, yes, anyone can see it. So once you publish it to the web and you either embed it on a website or you give somebody the link to it, they have access to be able to see it. This next question is a fantastic one. I'm actually glad that it got asked. It's what if I wanted to use a picture for an interactive poster that already had all the elements on it? How could I still include hyperlinks? Now, this year when I did the interactive poster with my grade 7 kids, I actually have a group of kids that are very, very artistic, and they utilize their Google tools, especially like Google Drawing, really, really well. And so most of them wanted to draw their own posters. And so what we did was we had them draw their poster, and they brought it into Google Slides. And then what we did was we used the line tool to draw shapes around the elements that they wanted to be hyperlinked. So I'm going to switch over to my screen here again. And I'm just going to bring up a quick example. It's our Choose Your Own Adventure book cover. So we're going to make that man in the center there a clickable hyperlink. Okay, and so if we go to our line tool, we can choose any one of those items there. I'm going to choose the polyline. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to the image of the man, and we're going to use that tool to click around him and to sort of get that shape going so that we outline him there and we get our own shape. Okay, so now that we have that shape, what we want to do is we want to make sure that there is no line color and no fill color. So what we do is we go to the line color tool up on the toolbar, and we make sure that it is transparent. That is the setting that it is. as well as the color fill tool. We make sure that that is set to transparent as well. So we don't see anything on top of the picture, but there is still that shape there that we created. So now what we can do is we can activate that shape so that we can see the outline there. And then we go to Insert, Link, and we provide the link that we want to, as we have in the past when providing or activating hyperlinks. Okay, and so if you have a picture that already has all the elements and you don't want to bring in individual elements, that is the option for how you can still provide hyperlinks. All right, we have time for one more question before we close here. And the question that we have next is, what if I want students to have more than one slide of writing before a choice in the Choose Your Own Adventure project? Well, that's a great question, and it's actually a really easy an easy fix. So all you would want to do is you would want to just add a slide, okay, and so that you have two slides where you're one right after the other. And on that first slide, instead of having choice 1 and choice 2, you just have a button that says continue. So it continues on to the next slide where the students would continue writing and then they have their choice. Well, thank you for the great questions and for sticking around to the end of this webinar. I do hope that you found something of value in the information shared today. Just a reminder that you will continue to have access to the templates and resources provided for you on the webinar page. You'll also have access to the recording of the webinar. So if you need to go back and review some of the items we discussed, you have the ability to do that. Also, by completing this training webinar, you are now eligible to receive a certificate of completion. So if your school or organization allows you to hand in documentation for online training, you can go ahead and click on the Get Certificate button that should now be visible just below this video on the webinar page. You will be asked to provide some feedback on this session, which helps me to be able to improve what I offer and how I present. There will also be a few questions about Google Slides based on what we covered in the session. Once you submit the answers to those questions, an email with your certificate will be sent out to you. Once again, thank you so much for participating in this session today, and I look forward to seeing you again for more educational webinars. If you end up creating anything as a result of what you've learned today, I'd love to see what you come up with. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, so feel free to tag me on posts of your creations. Thanks so much, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.